Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others aspiring to be them can follow in their footsteps.
Okay, great. Welcome to another episode of Latte with a Lawyer. Today we have with us from Abrams Fensterman, Sharon Stiller, and she is in Rochester, New York. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great, excellent. So I know it's late in the day, but when you get started in the morning, what's your favorite beverage of choice, since this is Latte with a Lawyer?
So I've discovered a keto coffee that I absolutely love. Only 1 cup though, and then the rest of my life is decaf.
Okay, why only get 1 cup?
Because I don't need any more energy than I normally have.
A lot of it?
Yeah, lots of energy.
Okay, good. Where do you get all that energy from?
I think my good genes.
Okay.
My peasant background that used to work in the fields all day and never complain and things of the sort. So now it's transferred to working in a law office all day and dealing with emails all night.
Got it. So tell me more about the peasant background. What does that mean?
Oh, my family came from Russia and Poland, and on both sides, both of my parents had large families, 9, 10 children. Just that kind of strong work ethic. My father was the first of the 10 children in his family to go to college. They decided they could afford to send one, and so they tried to figure out who was the best and the brightest, and it was him. And he went to college, got his doctorate degree, and then we all came. So
when did they? And it's the same as my family, by the way, Russia and Poland.
yeah.
So
all within the same area, and sometimes it was Russia, sometimes it was Poland.
Correct.
Yep.
So my grandfather actually came from Kyiv, and which is Ukraine, as you know.
Obviously.
My other grandfather came from Plock, Poland, which was the capital of Poland at the time.
Have you done your family history?
I have.
Yeah, me too.
And my father's father, who was from Poland, was one of 13 siblings. 13.
Yeah.
So those are big families back then.
Yep. I agree.
And
you know why they were big families back then?
I'm sorry?
Do you know why they were big families back then? Besides, we don't want to necessarily talk about contraception, but the legal topic of the day. But
it's probably just survival and taking care of the family. I mean, right?
Yeah,
that's the reason.
It was survival.
Yes.
Survival.
It was survival. So I'm getting Jewish background.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that. So yeah, I mean that was not atypical, and that's the typical immigration. I mean, my grandfather was an electrician. I mean, nobody went to college.
Exactly. Exactly.
And my father was his brother were the first generation to go to college. And my mother's father, I don't think anyone went to college. He did. He drove a mill truck in the middle of the night and took care of his whole family. And he became a doctor. I mean, it's a typical story, right?
Those stories are so wonderful. And that's actually part of being a lawyer, is you get to hear to know people's histories in a different way. It's fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So tell me about your story, like what kind of law you practice and how you got started and all that good stuff.
So I do litigation, and I actually started my career as one of the first 2 female assistant district attorneys in the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Way back when. I will not tell you, no matter how much you ask, exactly when it was, but way back when. And and at that point, I thought that criminal law was the be all end all. And then approximately 7.5 years later, I went into civil litigation and have been doing civil litigation ever since. In about well, no, I'm not going to talk about dates. At some point,
Well, I can see your CV, so I can figure out so.
okay, in about 1987, I became very interested in employment law, which was kind of like a twinkle in everybody's eye then. It wasn't
Right.
really formulated. And so I've been doing a lot of employment law ever since, representing employers primarily. The issues have changed dramatically over the years. And I find it to be fascinating. And again, going back to people's histories and knowing people's histories,
Right.
it's just, it's an incredible, gives you an incredible understanding of society and where people are in society. Even just take the pandemic and employment law, the importance of employment law and how it's changed during the pandemic.
Right.
And the issues that have arisen that people never thought about before. Can you require somebody to take a vaccine? Can you, do people have a right to work from home? I mean, it's just fascinating and ever changing. So I'm very lucky.
Yeah. Well, the state of New York has got a special place in that history too, with Andrew Cuomo leading the way on the way he handled the pandemic as well, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a two-edged sword with Andrew Cuomo. He also, beyond leading how he ran the pandemic.
And his own employment, issues that he dealt with, right? Yeah.
Well, not just his own employment issues, but he, at approximately the same time, he advocated for many changes in employment laws, including changes at that point with the Me Too movement going on, changes that would make it easier to prosecute sexual harassment cases, which were then utilized against him when there were complaints against him. So it's fascinating, and it just shows, I think, how crucial and critical to our world as we live it employment law is.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, all the cultural changes and how the law has changed with it, right? I mean, things that were the norm 30, 40 years ago, right?
Yep, exactly.
Are not coming back to haunt people.
Yep. Yeah, it's a very, very different and much more litigious world we live in.
Yes, much more litigious, correct. So so that's a good segue into like the kind of things you work on. And I would imagine, I mean, I've had things brought against me as an employer that had no idea were even brewing. It's like, just because.
Two confessions, huh?
I'm
Two
sorry?
confessions. I need to give you your Miranda rights.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, my point is that people are scheming and you have to be on the defense, which you are. And you've got to be very careful because there's all kinds of motivation and agenda that you don't know about sometimes, right?
Yep. Yeah. There's so many ways to get in trouble because, first of all, your primary focus as in doing podcasts is to get the podcast out.
Right.
My primary focus is to represent my clients, not necessarily to run my legal office. So there are so many ways that there are issues, and the laws are not always consistent. There are different definitions. Could be a different definition under the New York City law, a different definition or obligation under New York State law, and a different definition or obligation under federal law. And then they're ever changing. Right. So again, it's fascinating, but I'd rather be an employer representing I'd rather be a lawyer representing employers than be an employer trying to figure out how to navigate the terrain because it's so difficult.
So is most of your counsel, is it like sort of proactive to try to keep people out of trouble, or you react?
I wish.
Okay.
Much of my practice is litigation, and it's very frequent that I'll get a call from a client saying, this is what I did. Did I do it correctly? Okay. And I always say to them, the first thing that you did incorrectly was not calling me before you made that decision. So, sometimes they do things correctly, sometimes they don't. Most of the employers who are going to call me mean well.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do the right thing. It's just very difficult to figure out how to protect yourself. And sometimes the law is just, it's not only inconsistent, but it's just not necessarily logical.
Right.
So ways to protect yourself may be counterintuitive. For example, you have an employee who has a mental condition, maybe suicidal, things of the sort. As a person, your first desire is to reach out to help them.
Sure.
But you may be intruding on their rights by asking questions. You may be intruding on their rights by treating them differently. So it's, but for me, that's the vitality of the area that I particularly practice in, because no two situations are alike. There's always little curves and issues and things of the sort, but that's also what makes it so difficult for those who are making decisions.
Yeah. So are there typical cases that you got?
I get a lot of wage and hour cases where employers have not thought about what the requirements are beforehand, and then there's an audit, or there's somebody who wants to bring a class action because of how things occur. There's a lot of litigation in this society about the difference between an independent contractor and an employee. Particularly, you read about these cases all the time. So there's Uber and Lyft cases, and then there's cases involving people who drive for Walmart and or for Amazon, those kinds of cases. I get a lot of disability or other types of discrimination cases, and a lot of that also has to do with communication, because people don't really know why they were treated adversely, or they don't want to listen to why they were treated adversely, and therefore the logical response is to sue.
Got it. And what are your clients regional, or are they national? Are they small, large, in between?
So they're size-wise, they're all over the place. And some are local and some are regional. I chair our employment practice. We have offices not just in Rochester, but also in Albany, Lake Success. We're the largest law firm in Brooklyn and in White Plains, and we're continuing to grow. And the issues are similar, but not necessarily the same. And then I have several clients who are also national clients and have issues in other jurisdictions.
Okay, got it.
But you know what? A lot of the trends are the same. So the trend to have paid sick leave, for example, is occurring throughout the country. The ban the box concept to require that applicants not tell about criminal convictions, that's traveling throughout the country. The challenges to non-competes are coming up in every jurisdiction, as well as a lot of legislation banning it. Issues with arbitration and confidentiality of sexual harassment cases, those kinds of things. It's a trend. So there are lots of trends that you see.
Well, non-compete, I mean, that's an interesting one, because I mean, those are hardly, not very enforceable, are they?
Depends on the state, depends on the reason for the non-compete. So the theory has always been that any non-compete or restriction, maybe I should define what a non-compete is for people, but there are different kinds of, we call them restrictive covenants. So restrictive covenants include non-competes, which basically say things like, after your employment is terminated for any reason or no reason at all, you can't compete directly or indirectly in the industry for a particular number of years. And they can have different variations, different permutations on them. But there's also non-solicitations, saying you cannot solicit customers that you got to know through your employment, and you can't solicit employees. And there's a balancing. There have always been issues because obviously these kinds of restrictive covenants impact an employee's ability to be able to not only work, but to work in the area that's most suitable to the employee,
Right.
where they can earn the most money. But there's also trade secrets and investments that employers make in employees, and they're concerned that somebody will come learn their secrets and then create a competing business. So the legislatures and the courts have always tried to balance these competing interests. Initially, the kind of mantra for non-competes was that they had to be reasonably limited in time and geographic scope. And then the courts began to focus on them more and basically said there has to be a legitimate business reason for them. And therefore, the restrictive covenant has to be only so broad as is necessary to protect confidential information or trade secrets, things of the sort. So the courts are analyzing them a lot more. I've had cases where we've enforced non-competes. There have also been cases where non-competes have not been enforced. And since you, I believe, are in Florida, you'll be delighted to learn that there was a New York case that refused to enforce a choice of law provision that required the application of Florida law, because Florida law was not in keeping with New York's public policy. So, and then legislatures are enacting laws right and left about limitations. And there's some proposals in the New York legislature and the governor's State of the State message, not Governor Cuomo, Governor Hochul, who's the successor. In her State of the State message, there was a recommendation that there be restrictions on non-competes in New York.
Got it. That's interesting. Well, I would, I'm not sure what I was going to say, but anyway, it's interesting. I mean, first of all, there's a lot of cross-fertilization between New York and Florida.
Yeah, totally.
But the politics couldn't be more different, right?
Exactly. Yep.
The politics drive the legislature too, right?
Yeah. And then there are always issues about whose law is going to apply to litigation. And so it may say in the contract whose law applies, but it may not be appropriate to apply that law. So fascinating issues, always layers of issues and permutations in each case that make it difficult to know what's going to happen in the next case.
Right. Well, I can see why you have that book there. You seem like a real scholar and student around this topic. Yes.
See how heavy it is?
Yeah, I do. Well, there you go. That also serves as exercise and strength training. Yeah.
But there's no better way to know the law, even if you practice it on a day-to-day basis, than to teach it or to write the book on it.
Very true. If you can't explain it, then you don't really know it. So I live by that principle.
Yep, I agree.
You got to be able to communicate it easily, simply for people.
Yep.
So you're doing a good job for me. So how'd you get into the field of law? And
that is a great question. So we were kind of talking about our family backgrounds and things. Almost nobody in my family was a lawyer. And when I was growing up in the Middle Ages, in the dark ages, there are no women lawyers that I knew, and there really weren't any lawyers. There weren't even television programs about lawyers. I think the only television program that existed then was maybe Perry Mason. But by the time I was about 8 years old, I was just enamored of being a lawyer, and I wanted to be a lawyer. So what I did is I went and interviewed the only person I knew who was a lawyer, who was a shirt tail relative. And I actually remember sitting in his living room with my yellow pad. I don't think I knew cursive writing, so I think I was printing everything at the time, asking him questions. And to me, his living room seemed like it was the biggest area in the whole world was probably, just a
Right.
regular old living room, but I was interviewing a lawyer. The upshot of it is that I graduated college in 3 years because I couldn't wait to get to law school. Got to law school, couldn't wait to practice, became one of the first 2 full-time female assistant DAs in the DA's office. And the rest is history, except for the fact that after I got out of the DA's office, the firm that I joined, I became partners with the lawyer I had interviewed,
Ah,
law
nice.
partners. Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So the rest of your family, anyone else do a professional work like that? Doctor, lawyer, engineer?
Not really. My sister is a psychiatric. Well, I came from a family of therapists. So my father he was a guidance counselor, director of guidance, and then taught education and guidance and psychology. My sister is a social worker.
Okay.
And my brother got his degree in psychology. So I was weaned
Oh.
on psychology today. When I went to college, I wanted to major in psychology and pair that with law because I thought that it had a tremendous influence, and I still do. I
Mhm.
still would recommend that to people who want to go into a law career. But of course, at the time they said, oh no, you have to study political science because that's the path of a lawyer.
Interesting. Wait, and you grew up in Rochester? I know that's where you live. That's where you grew up. Okay.
Yep.
So
But we would have dinner conversations about all kinds of psychology topics, never about law.
yeah. How'd your family end up in Rochester?
That's an interesting one also. So at the time, the families emigrated. So this would be at my grandparents' level. They would emigrate to places where there were jobs available.
Right.
So when they came from the Russia, Poland area, they emigrated to Rochester, and then people would bring people together. But some of the family stayed in Rochester, but the employers at the time were requiring people to work. And when I say people, it was basically men at the time, men to work on Saturdays, which is Shabbos.
Right.
And so a segment of my family moved to Buffalo because in Buffalo, they weren't requiring employees to work on Shabbos.
Ah,
So the more Orthodox group moved to Buffalo.
well, there only were Orthodox Jews then.
No,
No,
well,
right?
I mean, obviously, there was a group of my family that was willing to work on Saturdays because you had to support your family.
Sure. But I mean, there wasn't the reform movement and the conservative, I don't think, at that time, right?
No, I don't know because I don't know the history of it. Probably there was, but my family certainly started out as extremely Orthodox.
Yeah. Yeah, like most and
Yep.
years ago. Yeah. Anyway, interesting. Okay. So would you still recommend someone to go into law school and become a lawyer?
Of course. I think it's the best profession on earth.
Really?
I
Why?
think-
Why do you say that?
It is so challenging and stimulating. It's so at the center of society. When I first decided that I wanted to be a lawyer, and particularly when I decided I wanted to go into criminal law, I think I decided that because I was naive and thought you could really help people. And I left the DA's office because I saw people continuing to go through the system and not a lot of changes, but you can impact people's lives by being a lawyer. So I truly believe that it's the greatest profession on earth. It also requires the greatest, what do I want to say? The greatest involvement. You have to always be on top of it. You have to always be available for your clients' needs. You have to always be aware of your clients' needs. Sometimes they don't even know what it is, and always have integrity and be ethical, most important things.
Right. But I would say it's like doctors and lawyers, even though they're necessary, you try to avoid them as much as possible.
Yeah, I know people. So I have very close friends that I've become friends with through representing them or their businesses. But I still have a lot of people who say, I really like you, but I hope I never see you again.
Right. Well, I mean, in business law, I mean, we always have attorneys representing us. I mean, you need them. They are advisors. They are part of the business really in many respects. But I mean, if you get in trouble, with a injury or, you're being sued. I mean, those are the times you'd rather not be in those situations, right?
Exactly.
But that's what I was curious about, like with employment law. I mean, I can see you being a part of just good best practices, right? So you don't get
Yep.
right. You should be.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's a team thing.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
But a lot of those things are, I mean, in business, I'm a business person. I mean, those things are minimized, right? They're like, you think of HR or, sort of employment practices like necessary evils, but you kind of minimize them versus what the business is trying to accomplish.
Sure. Well, the people view the primary objective as getting the product out.
Right.
But I've known many businesses that have gone out of business because of, it's not a bad HR practice, but it's because of a discrimination lawsuit or not complying with wage and hours rules, things of the sort, or not understanding them, or ignoring these issues until they become a significant problem. And it's there's a geometrical damage calculation when it comes to wage and hours issues, because in most situations, there's damages as a result of not doing it correctly, multiplied by the number of employees with whom you did not do it correctly, multiplied by liquidated damages, multiplied by the time of the statute of limitations or how long they've been working with you. So you can ignore one thing or make one bad decision and it just boomerangs. Becomes so big so quickly.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think the best organizations, as opposed to minimize, they maximize the HR function and
right.
Try to manage human capital, because at the end of the day, that's really what you rely on. Right?
Exactly. It's your most important resource.
Yeah, it's your most important resource. Let me ask you a question too about just using technology, since we're a technology company. I mean, how important is that in your practice or in the firm's practice? And are you a believer in it? Are you begrudgingly use it? But I mean, what are your thoughts on technology?
Oh my God, technology is so important and has become critical during the pandemic, just critical.
Sure.
So,
things like
so
this, for sure.
I've always been a technology nut. So way back when I was in the DA's office many, many years ago,
yeah,
was really when computers were just starting to come in. I became a member of the computer law organization. I think that there are like maybe 50 people worldwide who were,
No kidding. That's
interesting. Who were just interested in laws. And since then, a lot of laws, we talked about restrictive covenants, technology is so critical with respect to the ability to steal trade secrets.
Right.
It's absolutely amazing, but technology is very, very significant for my profession. It's significant for writing and updating my book. It's significant in terms of our obligations to know the latest cases that came down yesterday. I had one of my law partners was asking about a question involving service by email. And I recalled, because of technology and a report that came down that I saw, that there was a case that was just decided about a week ago and was able to find the answer. So it's really revolutionized the practice, but it's become a whole different venue, a whole different practice of law with the pandemic and so much stuff having become virtual. I've only actually physically been in court about 4 or 5 times in the past 2 or 3 years, but I've had many, many litigations and arbitrations both as a litigator and also as an arbitrator. I'm on the employment law panel for arbitration and mediation. Without technology, we couldn't do that.
You couldn't do that. Wait, so
Yeah.
do you get, so you find yourself in the courtroom trying cases?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
would normally find myself in the courtroom trying cases. Now I find myself trying cases virtually.
But in front of a jury? Jury
Not
trial?
necessarily, and
No.
I have not had any virtual jury trials, but there have been virtual jury trials.
Right, but when you do go to court, are those jury trials or bench trials?
They can be jury trials
Okay,
and they can be bench trials.
yeah. So to prepare for those kind of cases, are you doing focus groups, mock trials?
I've done both of those. Yeah.
You have, okay.
Yep. I've also, so one of the most important things that those lead you to is not just preparing for trial, but also deciding which cases should be settled or not.
Right, that's right.
Because we, you can look at 1,000 jury verdict reports, but each case has its own identity and its own permutations. And it's so important to know how jurors might relate to the participants.
So how do you come to, you mean, in other words, what the focus group might tell you in terms of the outcome or the valuation or?
All that stuff. This person seems sympathetic, they don't seem sympathetic. I don't care whether the employer did anything that was legal. I don't like how they treated the employee. Those kinds of things are critical to know and not easily measurable without getting feedback in a
Right.
technological context.
Interesting. Okay, very interesting. I didn't realize. Okay, I didn't realize that you were trying those kind of cases. Okay, that's interesting. But most settle, I would assume, right? As opposed to
Most cases all over the place settle
yeah,
because of the cost of litigation
right.
and now the delay in litigation.
Right, things are backed up, but even in the event that you settle, you're still preparing as if you're going.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And you still
Yeah.
want to maximize the outcome or in your case, maybe minimize for your client.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I can't make the situation, I can't turn back time, but what I can do is try to make the damage the least possible damage to the employer.
Got it. Okay. All right. I've had enough of these conversations. I'm a lawyer in training just by listening.
So you, like me, get to peer into other people's lives,
That's
which
right.
is fascinating.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. I'm a curious person. I've been involved with so many things. I always find it interesting to hear. It's interesting to hear the strategy too, which is what I would think would be interesting about practicing law. It's very strategic.
It is very, very strategic. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that there's a lot of variables. The strategy is not just in the win-lose aspect of it, but it's in kind of guiding the client through this very difficult time of their lives, as well as trying to make it as cost efficient as possible without really having control over everything.
Yeah, because the clock is ticking, right? It costs money to.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, good. Well, I'll wrap this up here. This has been real interesting. I appreciate it. If someone wants to get in touch with you and learn more about your practice, how do they do that? What's the best way?
Probably the best way is to look at my website.
Okay.
And then to send an email through the website, or my phone number is on the website. And we have many attorneys who do many things, many brilliant, wonderful attorneys. So if it's not something that I can help with, there probably is somebody who can help with it.
Terrific. Good. Well, listen, it's been my pleasure to have Sharon Stiller here from the law firm of Abrams and Fensterman. And this is sponsored by EmotionTrac. And I was leading the witness a little bit because we use artificial intelligence to capture nonverbal insights that people use for case preparation, for trials and mediation. Thank you very much, Sharon. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Take care.